Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm coming on pretty late again. Amazing. Just amazing. So much is happening, and, there's a big shaking going on, a big shaking because God requires that we forgive, right? He requires that we forgive. But there's no forgiveness without accountability. And so, in order to get the accountability, we need prosecutors. We need prosecutors and we need justice. And uh, those offices right now are being blocked or they're infiltrated with individuals that are up to no good, that are absolutely enemies. And so, God's shaking everything up. He's shaking everything up. It's just really incredible. And, you have to remember, God says, it's mine to avenge. It's mine to avenge. I'm going to do this. And that's where our faith comes in because we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going, moving forward. Absolutely identifying the crimes, because you can be FBI, you could be absolutely FBI, CIA. You could be the greatest investigator, and then um, identify the crime, document the crime, file the crime. But who's going to prosecute? Who's going to prosecute if you don't have any prosecutors? That's why what George Soros has been accused of doing, taking over the district attorney's offices, taking over the prosecutors' offices. Um, you know, is James 2028 stamp Beno Montoya going to prosecute? He's absolutely not qualified. He's a fake DA. Is the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office without any kind of DA in that position to be a leader? Are they doing their job? No, they're not. Look at what they've done with the victim, the trafficking victim uh, of Mario Ortiz Saroldi. They called her a prostitute. They called her a prostitute. So let's get started. There's so much news, and um, I've got so much to tell everybody. So let's see if I'm on. We're at day 1,934 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss. He was taken to the arms room, and his life was taken. He fought like hell. Our reports that we're getting is that one of the perpetrators had to have emergency dental work done because his mouth was bashed in by Richard trying to fight for his life. Um, his body was stolen. Richard's body was stolen. And we believe that he was a victim of the organ harvesting Juarez mills there that are connected to the um, Mormon faction cartel network that includes, the power broker there is Hunt, and he has Hunt, Woody Hunt, Texas Tech University Health Science Center. You know, do they need lots of organs? Do they need a lot of corneas? Do they want to make money off of a lot of corneas? Do they want to make money off of kidneys? Do they want to make money off of the skin off of someone's back? That all needs to be investigated because we believe that our son was a victim of this organ trafficking, um, and also the VA fraud for benefits, and also taken over, when they had their way with him and his body, that they also um, try to cash in on his empty shell um, with unidentified migrant humanitarian aid benefits. They were absolutely recycling bodies. They weren't cremating them like they had promised families. And then, of course, this Plenitude crematorium, narco crematorium, is connected to the cartels, to the Pan Party, to the funeral homes, many, many funeral homes that are transnational, going back and forth into El Paso and back into Juarez. And and of course, with those, they were trafficking other things, including weapons and ammunition and substances. That the deadly F substance, and of course, 500,000 children, 500,000 children through Fort Bliss, and we know through the DNI report that La Diabla was ripping babies with illegal C-sections out of mothers and then taking their organs and disposing of their bodies. This is absolutely demonic, and our son was the federal witness to the evils of the border. He was a whistleblower, and became a victim of it, and became a victim of the evil trafficking. And all our evidence points to the power brokers, right? The power brokers that put in these compromised individuals and call them DAs or call them a prosecutor for the North Zone. He's totally compromised. Carlos Manuel Salas, and of course the Western District of Texas, Jaime Esparza, absolutely compromised. And then you have just the attorneys that work behind the scenes, like Justin Underwood, totally compromised, using tampered evidence to do the asymmetric warfare tactics, right? He's the asymmetric warfare. He's the man behind the tampered evidence. He's the asymmetric warfare tactics, do the cybersecurity or do the splicing and dicing. Presenting it anyway, presenting them. So, he's the one that presented it. And he also, and this is what's so kind of shocking through all of this. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay. But, it's still shocking is that the lawyer for Mario Ortiz Saroldi, the case now that, they're calling the victim a prostitute when she's the victim. Um, uh, the lawyer for Saraldi is Omar Carmona. Okay, Omar Carmona, who was working alongside Justin Underwood to do their asymmetric warfare tactics. I mean, they're not military, but it's like that. It is really the deep state psyops, right? To get the public, give the public misinformation so that they can, um, you know, uh, uh, retaliate or attack their political opposition, right? Anyone wanting to stop their open border criminal trafficking network of all kinds of stuff. And, really, you think about the drugs and you think about all the children, you think about the women, you think about, all the human trafficking and then all the other stuff, right? All the other stuff with the weapons, because if you do all that, you have to have weapons and ammunition, and we know that. Um, and of course, coming from Fort Bliss, we know that anything that wasn't bolted down was free game to traffic, bring over to the border. And but we never really thought about the organ harvesting, right? The organ harvesting and trafficking, with and this is going to be a really big investigation, because you have with that, um, and the whole thing with Plenitude Crematorium, over 400 bodies. You have uh, e- uh, fraudulent death certificates and doctor documents to make this all happen, right? And then, with the adoptions and everything, there's just so much fraud here with the documentation. And, you can't have a country if you can't have any kind of trust in the documents, right? And death certificates. And that comes out of Delia Briones's county clerk office. Okay. And so, and we know all the connections to UTEP and Texas Tech, University Health Science Center, and then with the Mayellas. And I need to really put out the Mayellas every day. Please go through my Facebook and share the Mayella information, because the Mayella information proves that Bob Moore uh, withheld that from the public, withheld that with the public, and pushed the fake narrative that Patrick Crucius was mentally able uh, to do a mass shooting, which he's not. He's not. He is admitted that he shot one or two, which is enough to give him the death penalty, right? But to carry out an operation like the Walmart mass shooting, he's not, clearly. And Bob Moore kept the Mayella family information, which is Crucius's family, from the public. And they are witnesses to that. And they pushed the narrative that he was able, and that he just chose El Paso randomly, that he didn't know anybody in El Paso. That was a lie. And, so here he is, changing history, right? Changing history with, documenting lies that he knew, because he had that information. And we know he had the information because we have hard evidence that he had that information, and there's witnesses that he had that information. In July of 2020, that Patrick Crucius's family, or the Mayella family, that they were in the federal courthouse, that they were in the FBI office, that they were in the DA's office, that they were working at Walmart cybersecurity. He knew all of this, and he participated in falsifying history. And that's what he did in our son's case. That's why this is so important, because we're laying down evidence of the pattern, of a pattern that he actually does this all the time, that he is a biased, disgraceful individual, and that he played a bigger part in Richard's case. He played a bigger part. He was part of the case that he was then reporting on, because it was A&R Chavira, which he is connected to, that targeted Richard. So, but he knew about the Mayellas. The Mayellas absolutely are witnesses to Patrick Crucius's mental state, his autism, his fine motor coordination, which is very lacking. He couldn't tie his shoes when he was 18. We know this. We know he couldn't even speak until he was around 6 years old. So this is documented now. It took all these years, but Bob Moore had all of this in 2020. Okay, so let's look at the recent case at the BBC. The recent case at the BBC is the CEO uh, uh, allowed the splicing together of a video for J6 to change history, to make history something that it's not, to make President Trump say something that he didn't, and she has now resigned. Now, this is a really important point that everyone needs to know. Um, if this was a one off, okay, if this was just a mistake, she would not have to resign. They would put in a correction, they would issue a correction, they would call President Trump up and apologize. They would probably fire someone lower down for doing this splicing, but she wouldn't have to resign. But because not just her, but another high level individual in the BBC had to resign. So both of them, because they're facing a $1 billion lawsuit that needs to be filed. It has to be filed because this is a pattern. They have a pattern. Um, that's why they had to resign, because they know that this is not a one-off. This is a pattern, and there had to be some kind of action with BBC to try and prevent a $1 billion lawsuit that they're sure to lose because they are bias, bias, bias. And that pattern is seen in her being the president of the NBC, a part of NBC that ran the nightly news and all that. Um, she was also let go from that for splicing. Okay, splicing. In that case, back then, trying to um, trying to affect the American election. So, not just once, not just the 2016 election that she tried to affect by presenting false evidence to the public through NBC, but then again, in 2020, she was doing it with BBC. Now, BBC is different than NBC because BBC, and I lived in Ireland for many, many years, so I know we have to pay for a license, a TV license. We have to, it's like a tax. It's a tax. It's called the TV license. And this is owned by the country, right? By the countrymen. So 1 billion is coming out of the pockets of the British. They're not going to be too happy about this, okay? They're just not going to be happy about their money. Um, going to paying off a lawsuit, a $1 billion lawsuit. Um, and because their rates probably will go up, because you don't think that the workers for the BBC are going to want to take a pay cut to pay for this 1 billion, right? So this is a real scandal. But for us, what it proves is that there is a pattern of manufacturing and fabricating evidence to affect politics, to be very biased, when, like El Paso Matters for Bob Moore, because they are a 501c3, they can't be biased. They have to be neutral, and they are supposed to be educational, but yet they are operating bias. They did that in our son's case, and that's why this is laying down evidence proving a pattern of them abusing their 501c3 and acting so biased. And now you have, what is it, Stephanie Vaya and the other woman, now working for the DA's office, these media um, clowns, these media clowns, are now working for the DA's office, where that 34th Judicial District Attorney's office is calling the victim a prostitute. And she has been, the big R, and trafficked. And Mario Ortiz Saroldi, an attorney that knows better, um, uh, arranged to traffic her, to pick her up, to take her to a hotel, coercing her, right? This is a forced, and having his way with her in the hotel room, and then taking her back to her captors. That's trafficking, and that's the big R. That's under duress, under coercion. This is the big R. And the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office, that is faking it again with another fake DA, a fake DA with Hicks, a fake DA with Montoya, not even caring about the people of El Paso, right, of their district, of their 34th Judicial District. They're not caring. They're allowing their office to call her a prostitute, and then they protecting him with a misdemeanor solicitation, right? And he is engaged in trafficking. So this is really showing that the likes of Stephanie Vaya are so used to this pattern of tampering, of splicing, of fabricating, of manipulation, and if that means at the price of these trafficked girls that are being big R, then they'll go along with it. That's how bad they are, what clowns they are. And where are the women? Where are the women's groups coming out for these girls? And I call them girls because and you might find it. I haven't found it. In the articles, they list all the ages of the traffickers, including Mario Ortiz Saroldi. They got his age wrong at the beginning. It was kind of confusing, which tells you something, that they were maybe nervous about the ages, because they haven't put out the victims' ages. Okay, they haven't put out the victim's age specifically for Mario Ortiz Saroldi, who he took to that hotel room and then brought her back to her captors. And they haven't put out the age. Maybe they did. I didn't see it. So, but what I've read, they haven't put out the age. And there's a red flag with that, because if they haven't put out the age of the victim, then there is a possibility that that victim is a minor. Okay, that victim is a minor. That's this is how serious all of this is, that we have the 34th Judicial District Attorney as office coming to bat for an attorney that is being represented by Omar Carmona, who was working with Justin Underwood, right? Who is the biggest deceiver. All of his commercials are like with his children. He shields himself with his own children, acting like all patriotic when he is absolutely outright working to hurt our election process, to unseat a duly elected officer. He it's just you can't make it up. They play this asymmetric warfare tactics on you, this psyop, trying to say, oh, I'm so good or whatever, but underneath they're just rotten. They're just totally rotten. And where is the media coverage for the Mayellas, right? Where is the media coverage for the Mayellas? Where is the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office prosecuting the Mayellas? They asked, and they should be prosecuting El Paso Matters, right? the deception to interfere with a mass shooting case is so criminal, and to shield these witnesses, um, that was obstruction of justice, total obstruction of justice, because they were misleading and not letting these witnesses give information, and give information that's accurate to the public, about his autism, his severe autism, where he's banging his head on the sidewalk. Patrick Crucius had severe autism, and he's near blind. Okay, he's near blind. He's blind without his glasses. So, to be able to shoot like that, to be able, and then he even couldn't even get where he uploaded the manifesto. He said 4chan, and they're like, "Oh, don't you mean 8chan?" Because 8chan is where it was uploaded to. And they're just leading him. They have to lead him by the hand. He surrendered twice because he surrendered too soon. He didn't get it right. Go away, Patrick, come back when, we told you it was time to come back. All of that needs to be investigated, because, there was, and Judge Rodriguez in his letter made it very clear that he reported irregularities and tampering with the Walmart mass shooting case, right? And of course, he's a whistleblower for our son's case. So I highlighted some of his sentences in the cease and desist that he wrote and copied us on, and we're very grateful for that. And I hope that you take time to read those highlighted sentences, because it just shows that you have the same culture when it comes to the BBC, the NBC, the El Paso matters. And of course, now don't forget the Texas Tribune, and I think the Sarasota Herald, right? Because lived in Sarasota for a while. Those are all. Those are all Woody Hunt stuff, right? Those are all Woody Hunt. So you have to know who owns what you're reading, and what their intentions are, and all of this. And Woody Hunt, he has his own bank, West Star Bank, who put money there. And we know that there was fraudulent distribution of the Walmart mass shooting funds, which was more than $12 million. So, this BBC is really, really telling, because of everything in the case that has been tampered with. So it's laying out proof that they have a history of this, and an ongoing history of doing it. So this is helping um, um, establish the evidence that we need to move forward. The big thing that we're concentrating on is, of course, repatriating our son's remains to us, right? And that's a vicious battle. And, but God is in control of all of this, y'all. We don't have to do it alone. And that's really my point with all of this. These 5 years, over 5 years, I can tell you right, hands down, hands on the Bible, that God was leading the whole thing. It was just a miracle after a miracle after a miracle to even find the Mayellas, right? That the Mayellas existed, and Nadal Baim too. And you have to understand, when Nadal Baim said that Richard was dead and that he was over in Juarez, and they were looking for him in 5 different places, that's a lot of tampering there, a lot of tampering, dismemberment, a lot of recycling, a lot of that going on there. We called the State Department, okay? We called our connection, our contact at the State Department, and he confirmed that the FBI were there looking for Richard, and in 5 places. He confirmed exactly what Nadal Beam said. And so that's really important. And of course, we have the FBI, Connell Witten, that is totally compromised. Also, with Jesus Nieto Jr., he's totally compromised and in a big way because his wife works in with the military and intelligence. And then, of course, the other one is George Toros, whose wife works at Texas Tech University Health Science Center. And that's where Alexis Mayela Crucius is working. Okay. So, this is really important information to share, and to get out there. And we just want to say thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. We just need you to share this information because the power of the internet is something that I don't think we grasp how powerful it is. Because I can reach hundreds, if not thousands. It seems like I'm reaching thousands and thousands of people. And I could, how do you do that in a ballroom, right? Thousands and thousands on um, on a post. So, yeah, how do you do that in a ballroom? You can't, it only fits so many. So the online is very, very important, and sharing is very important to drive them to do the right thing. They have to be pressured to do the right thing. And then we need to hold those that are just extremely egregious accountable for what they've done. So that is uh, our goal, our goal. And we just want to tell you thank you so much for everything that you've done. So God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.